Hello, everyone. Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are the #1 internet talk network. We're also all over the place. We're on 46 different platforms. We're on Roku TV, Amazon TV. So wherever you like to watch us, we love it, and we will hope that you'll continue. So we have got a great show here today. It is Going Solo with Cece. I am Cece Shatz. I am the Doyenne of relationship building. What that means is I'm really a connector. I connect wonderful people to those who are in need. And so if you are struggling through divorce or possibly a relationship loss, if you're really in that transition of stepping into your new life of being single, just know that we have the right people for you, that we'll connect those people for you. So I am a divorce, dating, and a life coach, and I connect singles throughout my network, which is the Going Solo Network, for many years now. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. Our show today is sponsored by goingsolocommunity.com and meettherightone.com. And so I hope you'll check those out. They're great websites, but we've got a jam-packed show today. We don't want to mess around. We want to get right to it. We've got a wonderful guest here, Herb Knoll. Hello, Herb. How are you?
Well, very fine. Pleasure to be with you this morning.
Oh, it is great having you. Now, Herb, you're the author of The Widow's Journey and the host of the Widow's Journey podcast. And so tell us, and you've got a great book out too, which is actually called, you guys, it's right there on Amazon. It's called The Widower's Journey. So let's talk a little bit, Herb, about number one, I'd like to know a little bit how you got into doing what you're doing, because not everyone will reach out and try to help individuals like you do. So let's share with the audience a little bit about your journey on helping others with their widow's journey.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. In December of 2004, my wife, Michelle, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer on her birthday, December 23rd. And that began my journey. She endured 150 chemo treatments, radiation, etc., and a brutal 10-hour surgery. She survived for 39 months. And during those 39 months, I watched my wife go from a size 8 to a 6 to a 4 to a 2 to a 0. She died in March of 2008. And we had just moved to San Antonio, Texas. I was a banking executive, and I accepted a position there. And when she died, I had really anticipated her death and grieved beforehand. But then one day, a young lady on my staff who was about 19 years old, she walked into my office and she said, "The entire floor misses your laughter." And then it was at that moment that I realized that I was not in a good place. So I went to my church looking for help. I'm a Catholic. I went to VA because I'm a disabled veteran, and they assigned a psychologist to me. And then I went to Barnes and Noble, and I asked the clerk behind the counter, "What do you have for a new widower?" Well, he typed widower into his search engine, and he looked up at me and he said, "Mister, I don't have a damn thing for you." And I thought, that can't be. So he took me over to the bookcase, and we found 15 books, each of them written for widows, not one book for widowers. And it was then that I decided at that very moment, well, someone better write this book, and it might as well be me. And I resigned my 38-year career shortly thereafter and rededicated my life to helping widowed men. I had been published in the past, and I figured, well, what the heck, I'll try to get one published again. And I spent the next 8 years uh, monitoring the activities and the grief by 40 widowed men from all walks of life. Some with children, some were professionals, some were laborers. But I didn't want to just capture the first 12 months like a lot of books do. I wanted to know what was the long-term effect of being widowed, and how long does it take for the average man to be recognized and to rejoin society and experience joy again. And after 8 years and a lot of frustrations, in fact, I will tell you, my agent took my book to 32 different publishing houses, and two of them actually had the courage to say, men don't read books, so we're not going to publish a book for widowers.
Crazy.
I mean, actually said that to my agent. And of course, it was a young entry level person that was representing the company. But nonetheless, I decided, heck with it, I'll self publish. And I did, and it's still earning to this day 4.5 stars on Amazon.com.
That's wonderful. We'll put the book up there again, The Widower's Journey. Just go to Amazon.com and you can find it there. Yeah, it's amazing how many people don't think about the men and what they go through. And I have it myself with, because of course I deal a lot with relationship loss, with divorce, and again, it's a lot of it is geared towards women versus men. And it just seems like, because men tend to be fixers, right? So they want to go in and fix their lives, or they want to fix what happens. When they are going through the grief, when they're overcome with grief, it's very hard, because that's not something they can fix, and they don't know how to deal with it. And so, internally, emotionally, they're really distraught. And I just admire you for taking the courage to stepping beyond, what others might say, to help them, because definitely there's a tremendous need.
Actually, 1 out of every 5 men will be widowed, and many of them widowed twice. Um, and it's sad, because men feel that their egos get in the way, that they have to be strong, that nothing bothers them. And I actually I knew a playwright, and when I was writing my book, I called the playwright and I said, I think I have a play inside this book I'm writing. He said, well, what's it about? I said, it's about widowers. He says, Herb, I'm not going to write a book or write a play about widowers. And I said, okay, fine. So then I started sending him little tidbits through emails every week for 16 weeks of what the widowers were saying to me, and hoping to draw his interest in. All of a sudden, in the email, I received a script for a 2-act, 15-scene play. And I called him up and I said, what's this play all about? He goes, I'm embarrassed to say that on the day that you called me, I had totally forgotten that my father is a widower. And everything that you've been sending me for 16 weeks is true, because I saw it in my father, and I had to write the play. The play went on to become the best new play of the year in 2017 in upstate New York. So I was yeah, it's called I'm Fine. And therein lies the problem. Men always say, I'm fine. Well, they're not fine. They're not even close to being fine. And they need to loosen up and take some coaching from some people who've been there. And that's one of the reasons why I created the Widowers Support Network. I have 2,000 widowed men from 38 countries, all ages, all circumstances, including murder, that they lost their wife by. And it's the only place I know where a widower can go in, and I only allow men in, and the widowers can ask any question they want and not be judged. And then all the men from around the world, which are 38 countries, they offer their best practices to help the men. And they've actually labeled this page, Widowers Support Network, men members only. They actually labeled this page the best resources for widowed men on planet Earth.
That's
And
wonderful.
I think they're right,
Mhm.
because there's nothing else like it. I mean, it doesn't exist.
Well,
So
we call that paying it forward. In my group, my group is I have for a divorce and relationship loss, and it's the same way, because the reason being is not only have they, connected in shared experiences, right? Because they've gone through this, they've walked the walk, so to speak, but they also, part of their healing, right? Part of our own healing is helping others. And so it's a tremendous thing that you've established there, with allowing those to be able, who have walked the walk, to step forward and help other people, because it really does. When you take the eyes off of you, the pain doesn't necessarily go away, but it kind of diminishes, doesn't it? Because you're reflecting a positive energy on someone else. So it's really a tremendous thing that you've done. So it's really great. We have a lot of things in common, because one of the biggest things that our individuals here on the Going Solo Network, if they're experiencing divorce, loss through that type of relationship, there's still grief, right? There's a tremendous amount of grief that they have to process, just as the widowers do. And so let's talk a little bit about that, how to overcome grief. And so your individuals that are experiencing the grief that they're going through on your platform, do you see any you know familiar type of experiences?
yes, but let me first say that I've drawn some conclusions. I've been doing this for about 14 years now.
Mhm.
I've drawn some conclusions, and they include that you must pay attention to all facets of your life to overcome grief. You can't just focus on grief. So if your finances aren't in good order, it's going to pull you back. If your relationships with your spouses and parents is not a good one, it's going to pull you back. Or your children, it's going to pull you back. All facets, your career has to be in good order. If you were promotable before the death, you need to be promotable after the death. And I will tell you that I left my office in San Antonio for about 12 weeks. I was very rarely in the office. I felt at this point in my life, I needed to be with my wife. And as a result of that, the CEO of the company took some responsibilities away from me. And I, in essence, was demoted. My title was the same, my salary was the same. He was good that way, but he realized that I was distracted, and he had to reassign some duties to some other people. Now, I reported directly to the CEO, so I had a very senior position. I would have done the same thing if I was a CEO, because the company has to stand alone. Well, the same thing with your career. You have to be able to perform, and if you can't perform because you're distracted, or if your health is poor because you ignored your health for years while you were a caregiver, and then and that little ache and pain, you said, oh, it's not so bad, my wife is suffering and I'll pay attention to her ailments, not mine. Well, that's a mistake, because that little ache or pain turned into something serious, and now you have a health problems. So I actually drew up 15 rules to follow when you enter the grief journey, and one of them is take care of all facets of your life. And you do that by surrounding yourself with coaches, your advisory board. It could be a relative, it could be a friend, but you need to have talent around you, people who know and have demonstrated intelligence and special skills, and who you trust, and share with them what's troubling you, and let them advise you. And then also, I would say men have to have purpose. So, like when the wife tells a husband, honey, the lamp is out, what she's really saying is, fix the lamp. That's what
Where's
she's
the
saying.
light bulb?
Well, and men know their role because men are fixers. But when men are widowed, they see themselves as being broken. And then they try to fix themselves. And then they withdraw from society and they sit in the dark in their homes eating TV dinners. And they're just and they have to get out and have purpose. And I tell the men all the time, get off the sofa, go volunteer for the Red Cross or Boy Scouts or a little league or your church or something, but get out into society and contribute because your life's not over yet. And then what I hope that they all do is they celebrate their wife's life by living theirs.
Very well put. Mm, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus, along the way, they're helping, right? They're helping themselves. They're helping other people. They're experiencing life. They're not on the sofa, and they're experiencing life a little bit, um, getting energized, right? So yeah, all very good advice. Wonderful advice.
um, yeah. Men also make great husbands. Widowers make great husbands. Now, you may say, why would they be so special? And a lot of the men become insecure because they haven't dated for years and they don't know whether or not they can even attract, another lady. I was very insecure when I was widowed. I had very little confidence that I could attract another lady. As it turns out, I got lucky again, and I'm remarried. But um, it's hard for men who have, their weight has changed. They're not as athletic as they used to be. They have less hair. They have a lot of problems.
But that's
So
life. That's part of getting, I hate to say, getting older. We're all kind of like that, right? We're not, I certainly don't look like I did when I was younger. And yeah, so we all change. We all do. But I will
right,
tell you, from being a divorced woman, yes, I think widowers are definitely um, ones to date, as long as they've healed and they've gone through the process of being ready for someone new in their life. So yeah,
right,
because I mean they have the qualities that sometimes they're not. Divorced men, the problem is a lot of times they're rejected, right? They have that rejection, that the feeling like that, the feeling of brokenness, and they have to heal from that to be able to move forward. Well, widowers, I mean, what has happened to them is something they totally couldn't control. And so it's not a reflection upon them where they need some, guidance to be able to do some, maybe even some correctiveness, that type of thing. So it's just really stepping forward in a positive way, and energizing yourself to be able to go forward and being ready to have someone else in your life.
let me tell you why I think widowers are a cut above. And it's because, first of all, they were caregivers
Hmm.
and they honored their marriage vows. They loved their wife to her last breath. They were faithful. And I think those are attributes that every woman would want to have in their man. Where men who were divorced weren't necessarily faithful, or at least they didn't honor their marriage vows till death do us part. So there's a difference in the mindset and what the man brings to the lady when they're dating. Now, I happen to know a lady who has one more attribute that she discovered why widowers are preferable, in that they don't pay alimony and they don't pay child support, and there's no money being diverted to another outlet. And I laughed at that, but it's true. I mean, it's a fact of life. So yeah, it's widowed men can be the men that I have, the 2,000 men. They loved their wives, and they wrap their life around their wife. And that is actually problematic because their social calendar of the family was set by the wife. Honey, this weekend we're going here. Okay. The man just follows along. Well, no one's setting the social calendar now. And and the men are lost without it. Now also, most men don't have friends from their youth. They've lost contact with their old buddies. So their contact is basically with their coworkers, with their customers, maybe the people at church, maybe a few neighbors. That's their universe. With the wife gone, many men have complained that they no longer get invited to couples gatherings like they used to, because the wife was the kingpin. She was the connection to these people, and not the man. And it's hard in so many ways, and it surfaces in so many ways. The UN in 2010 passed a resolution. June 25th is the International Day of the Widow. They didn't do anything for the widower. And it continually surfaces. I ask people all the time, can you name a widower? And most people struggle with that. And about 5 minutes later, they'll come back to me and they will say, oh, wait a minute, the man down the street or the guy at church or the guy at work or whatever. But it's not top of mind. Girls know girls, and girls are infinitely more complex. I have 7 sisters, and I learned firsthand.
That I won't argue. I won't argue on that one.
I mean, your engineering is to be appreciated. You're able to make new friends infinitely better than men. Mm-hmm. So men, when they are first widowed, other people who are grieving the loss of your wife offer their assistance. Can I help you with this? Can I help you with that? And the men always say, oh, no, that's okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. No, you're not. Okay. Well, those people that you sent away are the same people who aren't there now, and you complain about being abandoned. And because the number one complaint that I hear from men is loneliness. The house is still. Some men even put their wife's perfume on their pillow so they can smell the fragrance at night. And it's tragic. I mean, it's difficult work. It's rewarding work, and we have a slogan: we heal hearts and we save lives. 6 men have openly admitted that they contemplated suicide, and they did. My services, which are free, help convince them not to do that. So that's why we adopted that slogan. Yeah. The men in America, particularly, don't get the support that they deserve. On one of my podcasts, number 23, I think, I interviewed 4 widowers, one from Australia, one from England, one from Scotland, and one from India. By the way, the man in India was a 33-year-old eye surgeon, and his wife was a physician as well. And she died at the age of 32, 6 months pregnant. So he lost his firstborn on top of it. But these 4 men and I discussed the cultural differences between their country and the U.S. on how that widowers are treated. And America pales by comparison. Other countries are infinitely better and more sensitive to the widowed man than America. And even in the corporations, which I come out of 38 years of corporate life, they have a thing called an EAP program, employee assistance program.
Right.
And once they learn that you had a death in the family or whatever, they send you to a psychologist for 3 1-hour visits, and then they wash their hands of it. Well, we helped them. We sent them to the EAP. Well, that's not enough. That's not enough. You have an investment in this person and their career, and they're an A player, and you sold them down the river. It surfaces everywhere.
Yeah, I realize how difficult. My mom died at a young age, and my father suffered for a long time, never remarried, and yeah, and he's recently passed about a year ago. And so yeah, I remember what he went through. He started drinking a lot. He even got a DUI. And luckily, the judge realized that it was due to my mother's death, so he kind of molded over. I mean, my dad paid a lot of money, because that's what DUIs are, but he was able to get it removed from his background and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was like, he just couldn't talk to anybody about it. It was just really, we all knew what he was going through. We could see it, and being close to him, we could definitely feel it, but didn't know how to reach him, because again, he's a guy and he's tough and he doesn't want to share when he's down, so to overcome grief is a true difficult situation. So, Herb, we're going to have to take a quick break. And so when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about it, because I know that there are so many people out there, so many men out there that really could benefit from your advice and from your wisdom. And so we'll share a little bit more with them. But before we do, let's share with the audience again your book. It's called The Widower's Journey, and it's on Amazon. And if you all want to get a hold of Herb, you can reach him at the Widowers Support Network.com. And that is his website too. It's widowerssupportnetwork.com. And so just go Herb at widowerssupportnetwork.com. Send him a quick email. Let him know how you're feeling, and he'll respond to you for sure. So Herb, stick around. We'll be right back, and we'll just take a quick break. All right, then?
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, welcome back. You guys are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the Going Solo with Cece show. We've got a wonderful guest here with us today. We're talking about how to overcome grief with our guest, Herb Knoll. He is the author of The Widower's Journey and the host of the Widower's Journey podcast. He's got a terrific book out there. Those of you that are going through this definitely need to check it out. It's The Widower's Journey on Amazon.com. And I want to make sure we share a couple times here how to get a hold of him because it's important information. Just email Herb at widowerssupportnetwork.com. The website is widowerssupportnetwork.com. Now, Herb, you're on Facebook, right? You've got a group on Facebook.
I'm sorry, say what?
You have a group on Facebook, am I correct?
Yes, I have 2 Facebook pages.
Okay.
I have Widowers Support Network dash members only. That's the one that's just for men. And by the way, we extend invitations to widowers, men who are caregivers, men whose wives have dementia or Alzheimer's, and men who had an unwanted breakup. And they're all invited, but by far, the vast majority of the men are widowers.
Yeah.
And the other one is just the Widowers Support Network, and that's available for much of the same content to ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's great. It's great work that you do. Like I said before we closed, that my dad, was a widower and really, really struggled. I mean, of course, he's old school and didn't really know how to reach out, I mean, he did some devastating things to himself, to his health, trying to get through the process of grief. And he did come to the other side of it. And I eventually became the caretaker of him. And so, yeah, so I totally understand how you lose yourself in caring for those that you love. And so, it's not an easy thing. So let's talk to the audience a little bit about how to overcome grief. And I mean, that is a huge subject. It's there's just many facets of it, right? Grief itself. And I know you had mentioned that you had some advice that you give others out there to overcome grief. So what would you say? Can you share a little bit with our audience here today?
Well, I've actually already said it, and it is deal with all facets of your life, not just one, because you're going to be continually pulled back into grief. Also, become a student of the industry of grief. There are brilliant works out there. Right now, there's a new book that was released this year called The Grieving Brain. And some people can't overcome grief for a long time. And people wonder, like, what's wrong with them? How come they're not over it yet? Their wife's been dead for 6 months. Well, it could be 6 years. And the grieving brain addresses it. The author, who's a PhD from Arizona State University, I think, she studied, along with others, how the brain functions when people are grieving. And the blood flow enables the various parts of the brain to function. And the blood flow is altered when grieving. And if it doesn't restore itself, you're going to be grieving for a long time. So there's a health issue, there's an anatomy issue that holds a person back from recovering. So don't be surprised if some people grieve longer than others. It's as natural as breathing. I would like to approach the topic of new ladies, and some men think, I told you that they're fixers. Some men think that if they meet a new lady, that'll fix it. And men marry much too soon on average than ladies do. But men will date one lady and propose to her because he's comfortable with her, or maybe 2. I always tell them, what's wrong with playing the field? Go out and date 12 ladies, 24 ladies. Okay, I'm getting anxious because I get excited about this topic.
We should have you come back on and talk about that because I've got a whole thing that we definitely could share. So let's make a date to come back on and talk about that because I agree with you, and not only about the widowers but also about individuals that are moving forward in their lives after a relationship loss. So definitely we gotta come back on and talk about that. But I wanted to. we got a little bit of feedback there. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the grief process, because people think, and just as you said, that, okay, there's a time period and bam, I should be over it. Well, that doesn't necessarily take place, because the elements of our lives are progressing, right? And just like we're coming up now into the holiday season. And so that's going to create triggers for individuals. They're going to start thinking about what it was like, when they were together with their partners, and now that their partners are not with them, and those kind of things. So it's every experience that you experience, if you can say that, every experience that you experience is the new one for you, right? It's something new that you have to deal with, and grief is something that you're going to be kind of stepping, out of, really, so to speak. And so you have to start experiencing life in order to get through the grief process. And however long that takes you, is really up to you, and how willing you are to open those doors to new experiences in your life, right?
Right. And you can do it in little steps.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to rush out and change everything overnight. Um, and that's when I talk about getting off the sofa. I mean, the men are so reluctant to do that, and they're not skilled at making new acquaintances. So they need the advisory board that I talked about, and they can join meetup groups. Meetup groups are all over the country,
Mm-hmm.
and they're specialized groups. One could be hiking, another one could be visiting museums. But there's meetup groups is a great way to get out of the sofa and to say hello to another person.
Right.
But I want to caution the men, at least, that don't look to replace your wife. Look for someone different. I had a man tell me one day that he has a date tonight. He had already met the woman previously, but his first date was tonight. And then he looked at me and he said, "But she's not like my wife." And I said, "Good, good, because you want them to be different. You want them to feel different in your arms. When you kiss them, you want it to taste different. You want different perfume. You want different hobbies. You want different special interests, cooking or travel plans. You don't you don't compare your potential new lady to your wife ever, any more than you would wish to be compared to her former husband."
Okay,
And
I
I'm
have
sure,
something to say about that. And then what I'm going to say is that, we do have a comment here, real quick. Let's, oh, no, forget it. It's just somebody being, we'll block them. Anyhow, sorry, we get those from time to time. But what I want to say about that is that when you met, gentlemen out there, when you met your partner, right, for the first time, and then you're together for a while, you're not the same person you were when you first met, right? Nor she is the same person as she traveled through life with you. So what makes you think that you're going to want to have the same type of experience, right? Because you're not the same person. So for me, when I talk about grief, one of the processes of grief is to start learning who you are, start learning what makes you tick, what makes you happy, what step out of this into this new world, and start enjoying life a little bit. Enjoy the experiences that you have, and you'll meet someone along the way that you're going to have that connection with, and it's going to be a totally new connection, because they have different experiences that they want to share with you, right? It's like a connection of journeys that we're doing. And so to rush very quickly into another relationship isn't doing yourself justice, and focus on yourself to be able to really be happy, and I see it all the time with the divorce group, is that I have many men that were widowers that stepped into a new relationship only to find that it wasn't successful. And then they're devastated. They're like, oh my gosh, what can I do? I really thought this was going to work. Then they feel almost like a failure. And the reality is they didn't fail. The reality was that they didn't take the time in which, number one, to heal, find themselves and be able to take that progressive step moving forward, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's a tricky thing. It's a wonderful that you're doing for other people, that you're helping them. And so, unfortunately, we've got to probably wrap up the show. Are there any last words you'd like to share with the audience here today, Herb?
Well, I just want to say to the ladies who watch this program, don't rush to the altar with a widower. He will meet you there. He'll be there ahead of you. You, we have baggage, many of us, at this stage of our lives. When we were 19, we didn't have any real baggage. So now we have financial issues, we have a homestead, we might have children, we have in laws. We have different careers, different special interests, different ailments. Don't rush to the altar because you don't know what you don't know about your possible new mate. And it takes a while for everything to surface, whether they have credit or did they go bankrupt? Do they have a war chest or are they a predator? I mean, there's so many issues when you're mature in age that could come back and haunt you. And that's why half of the men who remarry that I've monitored end up in divorce. And that divorce is not like losing a wife. That divorce will cost you, and it will cost you dearly. And I actually say to them, do you know the price of a divorce today? Yeah. Before you say I do, you need to know that you're on solid ground so that you have a long and loving relationship. And we've had a lot of success making that happen or helping that happen.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. So, everyone out there, please go and get the book, The Widower's Journey, on Amazon.com. Any questions, you can email herb at widowerssupportnetwork.com. The website is widowerssupportnetwork.com. As he said before, he's got several groups right on Facebook. You guys are welcome to join him there. I mean, what an important topic. Thank you, Herb Knoll, for joining us. It's just a pleasure to have you. Now, also, everyone, he is the author of The Widower's Journey, which we talked about on Amazon. He's the host of Widower's Journey podcast. So don't miss out on the podcast. Where can we find your podcast?
I'm sorry.
Where can we listen to your podcast at?
Widower's Support Journey podcast at let's see, it's widowersjourney.libsyn.com.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful. That's terrific. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it very, very much. You're a joy. And we're going to have you back on so we can talk a little bit about the other subject, because I think we need a whole show for that, because that will be a lot of fun. And it'll be a very interesting topic to discuss for sure. Well, I want to thank you so much.
Let me just also suggest at my website, Widowers Journeys, or widowerssupportnetwork.com, there are over 300 articles written by subject matter experts or widowers, and some very good best practices. So that's available to anybody at any time.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out. That's very important. So really a lot of information on the website, widowerssupportnetwork.com. Check it out, and I'm sure that it's going to help many out there. Thank you again, Herb. I appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.
Well, everyone, time went by very quickly. I want to thank you all for joining me here. I am Cece Shatz. I am the Doyenne of relationship building. I'm a divorce, dating, and a life coach, connecting singles through our Going Solo network. And if you want to check out our websites, goingsolonetwork.com or the Going Solo Media, which we have all of our wonderful shows and hosts that are on there. So check that out. We want to thank our wonderful sponsors today, goingsolocommunity.com. That's a singles community helping you with the transition of stepping into your new life of being single, and also the transition of dating. And then Meet the Right One when you're ready to date. That's there for you. It's a dating community, something something totally different and unique. So check it out. Meet the right one. We want to thank them for sponsoring the show here today. I am Cece Shatz. I want to thank you very much for joining me here on Going Solo with Cece. You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, the #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.